Pakistan's democracy is once again being put to the test. Security forces this Monday evicting protesters who'd knocked state television off air. It was only for a few hours, but part of daily protests to bring down the government, quite spectacular. The first government in the country's history elected through a handover of civilians to civilians. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif manages to ride the storm. The question will now become, to what extent is he beholden to a military that once before, in 1999, overthrew him, with the general who overthrew him currently on trial for treason? We'll size up the allies of circumstance banding together against Sharif. They include cricket star turned populist politician Imran Khan. We'll look at the reasons and timing of this crisis, which also comes as Sharif tries to bury the hatchet with India's new nationalist Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Today in the France 24 debate, we're wondering, do you send in the army to quell the crisis? And with us, Pakistan's ambassador to France, Khalib Iqbal. Thank you for joining us. Umar Rehman, who chairs the Paris branch of Imran Khan's Pakistan, let me pronounce it right here.
Go ahead.
Tehreek-e-Insaf Party?
Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf.
Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party. The PTI.
PTI.
The PTI. Also with us, attorney Azif Arif, author in French of Ahmadiyya, A Forbidden Islam. Thank you for joining us. And from Istanbul, Time magazine reporter Omar Awerik. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. As we said at the outset, Pakistani state broadcaster PTV back on air after soldiers and paramilitary forces stepped in. But Islamabad remains on tenterhooks, with the defense minister warning of a selective crackdown against protesters. More with Vikram Singh.
Protesters on site, Pakistan state TV off the air. As the standoff in Islamabad between anti-government protesters and security forces intensified, hundreds of baton-wielding men stormed the offices of Pakistan TV and briefly closed down the channel. They were eventually escorted out of the premises by Pakistani soldiers. Most of the protesters were believed to be supporters of cleric and opposition leader Tahir al-Qadri.
We set out on this mission with Dr. al-Qadri, and we've promised to live and die with him as well. And if God wills, the dawn of the revolution will come very soon in our country.
The demonstrations, which have been going on for 2 weeks, turned violent on Saturday and have since led to the death of 3 people. The protesters' latest push into the heart of Pakistan's capital came in the backdrop of renewed clashes with the police, a number of whom were also reported to be injured. Opposition leader Imran Khan urged supporters to cooperate with the army, even as he repeated his calls for the Prime Minister to quit. He says last year's elections, which saw Pakistan's first democratic transfer of power, were rigged.
We're asking Nawaz Sharif to resign immediately because today people across Pakistan will come out in the streets. Everyone is suffering because of him. People's livelihoods are at stake. Mr. Sharif, you have no right to remain the Prime Minister of this country.
The army is a key power broker in a country which has seen extended periods of military rule. Senior army figures are believed to have told the embattled government to resolve the political deadlock without resorting to violence.
We're going to go over the day's events, but first let's begin with the latest development. Our correspondent in Islamabad, Taha Siddiqui, saying that Imran Khan has left the area where he had been been taking part in that siege since August the 14th. Omar Warek, we're hearing that this is taking place amid a rift within his own party.
Well, there's a new development. I don't know what to make of it. We're still to hear the details. We did hear earlier, though, that Javed Hashmi, who's a senior member of Mr. Khan's party, in fact, the president of the party, had parted ways with Mr. Khan over a disagreement to march on the Prime Minister's house a couple of days ago. And as a result, a divide had come between Mr. Khan and Mr. Hashmi. So we'll have to see if this means the end of the protests or not.
All right, we'll have to see whether it means the end of the protests or not. Let me get your reaction to this, because we know that since yesterday there's been an open rift between Imran Khan and the president of his party.
To start with that, I would say first of all that the thing that how the government has taken the issue in a wrong way, it could have gone into the many that could have raised a lot of security issues in the whole Islamabad, and that was not the security for the Pakistan. Having said that, the government, as it has taken a lot of precautionary steps, they have also did some tactics to stop this movement. And as concerned, as far as Mr. Javed Hashmi is concerned, the allegations that is put by the Javed Hashmi Sahab, that is not, he didn't provide any proof of that, and it is just the allegations to just destabilize the movement that is today going on in Islamabad.
So the allegations being that Imran Khan is playing the game of the military in this.
That is just allegation. I mean, it is, as I said in the last time as well, that it is very easy way to just put everything on the army. I would say if Imran Khan was in the case, if we just take it as just for the sake of the discussion, if Imran Khan was sponsored by the army as it was claimed, then army has already had a lot of opportunities to avail it, because since 17 days, PTI is in Islamabad. They are protesting, and that was really peaceful, as everybody has observed. It was a peaceful protest. And when this thing started, and today's event, when the PTV was taken over, and army has claimed that the army was there and it took the people out. For army, it was a golden opportunity.
Let's look at those pictures. Yeah. Khan and Qadri instructing their supporters to avoid any confrontation with the armed forces. As soldiers entered the PTV building, many protesters smiled. Reporters describing scenes where they shook hands with the soldiers, and there you see them in those images walking out with their hands over their head. By the way, this evening they've gone back to clashing with police. So, okay to cross swords with police, but not with the military?
It's a very simple question. I mean, whenever there was a military involvement or there's a military intentions in Islamabad, there are four key places to take care of. One is the PTV headquarters, the other is the radio stations, the two is the parliament and the prime minister and president's house. My simple question is that the government is asking since the start that it's declared it as a red zone, it has declared it as a protected area, and this particular building of PTV was left without any security. The question is, where was the security? The government in the last 3 days, what we have seen, they were more concerned about the buildings in the red zones. They were not concerned about the people who were dying there. So the peaceful protesters, they have to sacrifice their lives for these buildings.
And do you condemn the taking over of the and the knocking of state television off air?
We strongly condemn, because these are these buildings, they represent the state. The buildings, they represent the state. But on the other side, as the governments claimed during the last 3 days, was the protection of these buildings, where was the security at that time? Right. And secondly, why this event has happened, we have got not the clear pictures, because what has been said on we have got some reports as well that there is Mr. Nawaz Sharif government is involved into it, because we have unconfirmed for the moment, we have got some reports that those people that were inside, they do not belong to PTI, and they do not belong to the Pakistan Awami Tehreek PAT. So the real question is that when they have entered the buildings, they have basically violated the law. The military, when they have came here, why didn't they stop and verify and check those people who were coming out of that? That was the first action the military would have taken.
A lot of questions. The biggest one that people have been asking is, why is this all happening now? The election, this is over alleged ballot rigging of an election that took place in the spring of 2013. It is in August of September, excuse me, of 2014.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah. So why now?
I think that is a question which needs to be asked from the parties which are involved with it. And Mr. Imran Khan heads a political party. Maulana Allama Tahirul Qadri, he heads a religious party, which is also partially a political party now, though without any representation in the parliament. What all is happening, I think, is very unfortunate, because the rules are very clear, the constitution is very clear about it. There is a government, and for the first time in the history, we had the transfer of power from one civilian government to another. And the country was hoping that we can continue with it for another 4 years and 5 years, and then the new elections would be held. Mr. Imran Khan, since day one, has alleged that there was certain mishandling of votes in a few constituencies. And for that, over the last 1.5 years, he has been protesting all over. Ultimately, the Prime Minister ordered a judicial commission, and the judicial commission needs to start its work to decide whether there was any fraud done or not. And without waiting for the end result, the agitation started. So the answer has to be given by PTI and by Awami Tehreek.
All right, Asif Arif, let me ask you, because the ambassador, you're talking about agitation. Can you have agitation in a place like Islamabad without the consent of the military?
For the consent, I cannot, just tell if there is some agitation without the consent or with the consent of military. My main purpose is to telling that in all the process, in all the events that are going on in Pakistan, the main reason of all this is the lack of justice. I think we are talking about the Judicial Commission and we are talking about judicial power. And it's very interesting to note that the Election Commission of Pakistan, for example, needs to be an independent commission, because we don't have, till today, we are not able to tell if they have some misleading in the election or not. So first of all, we need to reform the body who represent the judiciary system, which can enable us to judge if there is some rigging in the election or not. If we don't have any independent structure, how can we say that military is involved or not? It's speculation.
How do you feel about the army last Thursday stepping in as a mediator?
Army every time intervene when there is a crisis in Pakistan. Whereas the issue of public order, army every time is questioned. There is some public riots, army is questioned. Okay, army will intervene or not?
Okay, that's maintaining the peace. Here we're talking about acting as mediators. Do you think that's a good thing?
If they can bring justice, it's a good thing.
All right, last Thursday's announcement that the army was stepping in as mediator, drawing rave reviews from protest leader and populist cleric Tahir ul Qadri.
I want to thank the Army Chief and the Pakistan Army as an institution for coming forward to find a peaceful solution to this crisis. I do not remember any instance in our history, maybe you do, but I do not, when a people's power clashed with the federal government and the Pakistan Army officially came forward to act as a negotiator and a guarantor.
Omar Warwick, your thoughts on that statement we just heard?
Well, I think it's an unfortunate incident for Pakistan that the civilians, the two sides, the anti-government protesters, and the government itself haven't been able to come to a negotiated settlement. And as a result, it's led to the inclusion of the army chief in this mediated role.
And what do you think here? You hear one of those opposition leaders giving what sounds like a rousing endorsement of the army.
Well, I mean, Mr. Qadri, he's standing against the government, and so he realizes that the army is the ultimate powerful force in Pakistan and would like to position himself so he's on the army's side, trying to draw a wedge between the army and the government. So that's something that he would do in normal circumstances. Other politicians have done that. Other opposition politicians have done that in the past. The army itself has said, however, that it would like to stay out of this crisis. They had a Corps commanders meeting yesterday where they reaffirmed support for democracy. The army chief met with the Prime Minister today, and his media wing has said that there's no talk of there being any kind of takeover or the Prime Minister being forced to resign. So it seems the army has been reluctantly drawn into this incident because of this failure between the different politicians to be able to find a means of negotiating amongst themselves. There's a failure of Parliament. There's a failure of, or in one interpretation, the stubbornness of the protesters to not accept Parliament as a forum where to discuss these issues and come to some sort of amicable resolution.
Ambassador Iqbal, last week there were talks between the head of the army and the Prime Minister. There were further talks this Monday. Do we have any idea what the substance of those are?
No, it's all reported in the press. So, but before I answer this question, I would like to refer to your previous question, which was put to Asif, regarding the involvement of the army. I think army in Pakistan, or the military in Pakistan, is a very well-respected institution. And any time there has been a crisis, we have always felt that the military can act the balancing, can have the balancing act over there. In the past, it has happened. It will happen now, and it's going to happen in future. But it does not mean that the army has instigated the whole issue, because the way it has been conveyed is that probably army is supporting Imran Khan and Tahir al-Qadri, and they are behind these two politicians, and that's why they are in the red zone and in Islamabad. I can assure you, anybody who wants to protest in Islamabad has the right to protest. Anybody who wants to come on the Constitution Avenue has the right to come over there. It's not that they have been stopped in the past, and it's not that they will be stopped in the future. Secondly, about what all is happening, what all happened between the Prime Minister and the Army Chief, as a matter of regular consultations, the Prime Minister meets all the political parties, he meets all the opposition leaders, he meets all the stakeholders, the members of the cabinet.
But the way the press has reported is they've been negotiating. They've been negotiating over devolving certain powers, the foreign ministry, the defense ministry.
No, that's not correct. I think that's very baseless. That's an assumption which has no basis whatsoever. Because the army is not trying to get powers. Army in itself is involved in a war against terror, which is Zarb-e-Azab in the tribal belt. You think a military fighting a war over there would be interested in political issues over here, and at the moment when they have a bigger stake fighting the war, they would be working on the Constitution Avenue in Islamabad and trying to sort out the matters of the government over there? It's not like that, because the whole thing has been looked and seen in a different perspective. But
analysts can be on their guard because there have been more years under military rule than not under military rule since independence.
That's true. That's true. That's why there is a consultative process within the government. Whenever there is an issue, whenever there is no issue at all, still the Prime Minister meets the military chiefs. The Prime Minister has been meeting the military chief 3 months prior to this event, almost on very regular basis, but those were not reported. What was reported was because the army chief is called by the Prime Minister for discussion. Of course, they are going to discuss the local situation, the political situation over there. The ultimate objective is to ensure that everything is within the Constitution, and all stakeholders and all pillars of the state, they play their role, what has been devised for them within the Constitution of Pakistan.
All right. What role for the army going forth, and how strong a Nawaz Sharif after this crisis? We'll be putting the questions to our panel when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.